Okay, hi, I'm Jeffrey Nordine, and today I'm going to be teaching you how to play the drums. Today is going to be an advanced lesson. We're going to be covering quintuple polyrhythms, quintuplets, using quintuplets. If you don't understand what it is, hopefully I'll be able to explain it to you in just a second here. All right, we're going to be talking about today is advanced polyrhythms. Now, you may have heard from different people, different sources. There's different terms for this. There's polyrhythms, there's hemiolas, there's irregular rhythms, irrational rhythms, tuplets, duplets. For our purposes, that's basically all the same thing. You can go to Wikipedia and get the rather abstruse and long-winded articles on them, and you can tell the differences, but it was rather confusing for me, and I think I can understand this. Anyways. A polyrhythm, basic definition, is just two rhythms being played simultaneously. Now, all drummers do this. The most basic polyrhythm, of course, is just an eighth note over quarter notes and half notes, which is the most basic drum beat that everybody starts playing with. Now, you might not think of it as a polyrhythm, but really that's all the drumming is. Now, it gets more complicated when you add irrational rhythms. Irrational rhythm just means that the amount of beats, or the amount of notes in a beat is not the usual division of two, which would be, you know, a normal quarter note for 4 and a measure in standard 4/4 time, eighth notes, or 16th notes. And the easiest polyrhythm that uses an irrational rhythm is, of course, the triplet. And it's so common that actually it even has its own marking, and I guess if you have your own marking, Sibelius, you've made it as a note. Anyways, triplets, of course, sound like this. Now, some more advanced polyrhythms include the 2-on-3 polyrhythm, which using triplets sounds like this. And the slightly more advanced 3-on-4. Now, you can use that in lots of different grooves, but today we're going to be talking about quintuplets, which means dividing the beat into fives. And that gets a little bit more complicated. All right. Now I'm going to talk to you about the quintuplets, or fivelets if you want to be vulgar. Anyways, that just basically means that for each beat, you're going to have 5 notes. So the most basic one is 1-on-5, which is... I mean, each beat of the quarter note, you have 5 notes playing. Now where it gets a little bit more complicated is when you start to go on to the more advanced polyrhythms using 5, you get 2-on-5, which is... And the next one after that is 3-on-5. Let's see if I can remember how to do this one. This one's a little hard. And then after 3-on-5, you have 4-on-5. And that covers all of the basic polyrhythms you can use using the quintuplet format. Now, the important thing to remember is just try and think of it in standard 4/4 time first, where you have 4 sets of quintuplets. So you're dealing with 20 notes. Math, mental math. Anyways, you're dealing with 20 notes per measure. And you can divide that in many different ways. If you divide it into 3, you're going to end up coming around on the beat every 3 beats. And if you divide it into 4s, you're going to be coming around on the beat every 4 beats. So it'll fit in a standard 4/4 measure. What that means for grooves, I'll show you in just a second. There's lots of different quintuplet grooves you can do, and I'll show you 4 that I've come up with. Now, of course, you can divide the beat in any way you want. As soon as you get a grasp on this, it's really good to add in with 16th notes and sixlets and also triplet patterns, especially if you're a progressive metal drummer and you want to add that extra kick. All right, the first one is a basic hi-hat groove using 5. This is about as simple as it gets when working with quintuplets. It gets a little bit more interesting if you add, I guess they'd be called decuplets, tenlets, the accents inside the 5-let pattern for the hi-hat. So you end up putting, I guess in marching terms, it'd be putting a diddle on one of the 5 notes in the sequence. So it sounds something like this. you can add the snare drum into that and get a really interesting sounding groove. Another thing you can do with the quintuplets is use the 2-on-5 rhythm that I showed earlier using the double bass drum. That would sound something like this. Another good idea to try is, and I don't really know the division of this, but it's a 2-2-1 pattern. It's analogous to the triplet pattern that uses 2 triplets and 1 triplet for each of the notes. It sounds something like this. Sort of a blues jazzy kind of groove. Now you can do that same thing using 5 by adding just an extra note in there. Using these different quintuplet patterns, you can do all kinds of interesting groove ideas. I've been looking around on the internet, and I haven't really noticed anyone that's ever done this before. I mean, even on YouTube, I didn't find any. The closest I could come was some marching band sprees, which use 5-lits and 5-lit accent patterns to create rather complex rhythms. But I've never seen it applied to a whole drum set. And I encourage all of you out there, especially the more advanced drummers, that want to have limb independence and can do different kinds of polyrhythms, want to explore further, go ahead and look at 5s, because we usually, in drumming, we usually start with 1s, and we go to 8th notes, and we do triplets, and we do 16th notes, and then we do 6-lits, and we just completely skip over 5. Maybe because it's hard to conceptualize, maybe because it's not really used anywhere, but it doesn't have to be that way. Anyways, I just encourage all of you to try out these new ideas and come up with some of your own. And that's it for me. I'm Jeffrey Nordine, and this has been Quintuplet Polyrhythms.